Hello, entrepreneurial listeners, and we want to thank you again for always tuning in, clicking like, and going to our various social marketing sites for radio entrepreneurs. I'm Jeffrey Davis, host of Radio Entrepreneurs, also CEO of Mage LLC, management consulting firm in the Boston area, working since 1985 with over 700 leaders and of organizations, helping them to achieve their visions. Our next guest, welcome back, Brittany Greenfield, CEO and founder of Wabbi.
Great to be back. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. Why don't you tell our listeners again a brief introduction to Wabbi and then what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wabbi bridges the gap between security and development by orchestrating the application security processes as part of the software development lifecycle. The analogy I always use, it's like building a house. You have checks and balances as you build your house so that you feel safe when you go into a house or a residential, or a commercial building. And that's what we do for security portion of software development. We're used by some of the world's largest enterprises, and we really just love helping people untangle this hairball of how you actually marry both security and development so you can achieve more secure code without sacrificing velocity or agility.
Well, security is one of the hot industries in today's world, and
without a doubt. And I think the events of the past week with the Las Vegas breaches, Clorox breaches, it really just reminds us that one, security is not going cybercrime isn't going anywhere anytime soon. One of my favorite facts is the fact that, cybercrime this year is going to be an $8 trillion business. So if you pair that with,
I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? It would be the third largest economy in the world behind the U.S. and China if it was its own country. And
and it may be.
Oh yeah, it is probably could name a few. And it's not going any place. But it's not just about the fact that cybercrime isn't going any place. Crime is crime. But it really impacts our ability to leverage the full extent of the digital world that we live in when we're not securing things appropriately. And I think that's the biggest challenge that people have nowadays is I can't, like children, you can't just wrap everything up in a bubble and hope that they'll be safe. So how do you actually find that balance between what risk we're willing to take on as individuals, as companies, and the ability to move forward?
So I don't want to get in trouble, but would you call yourself a nerd?
Oh, absolutely. Proudly.
And I would assume at some level to understand your business, you have to be. And I don't say it in a pejorative way. You have to be a nerd.
Yeah, 100%. Like you both do, but this is actually one of the places where I like to destigmatize it, because you don't have to have, I think people have this vision of cybersecurity as being, a guy in a hoodie, sitting in a dark room.
Wait a second, versus a woman in a trench coat?
Right. And I probably should have picked a different thing. I guess subversively it starts to penetrate. But I had a very different path into cybersecurity because I realized how important it was as part of our infrastructure, our societal infrastructure, and the enterprises I'd worked in. And I really, I think the best folks in cybersecurity are intellectually curious people, nerds, if you will, not just people that necessarily have hands-on keys hacking experience. Because the way we're going to solve this problem is really more about thinking in different ways. And that's why I always like to do a little bit of a PSA to say, hey, you don't have to be a hacker. You don't even have to be a coder. I often say I'm a proud comp sci dropout. I learned early on I lack the art to actually write good code, even though I can tactically do it. And so that's my PSA for the day, to say, hey, you can come from any background and get into cybersecurity, and it's just a place to be curious and want to solve tough problems.
Well, I used to consult into the security industry many years ago before it got as complicated as it is today. But I want to quote my well-respected friend, Aviva Sapers. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah. I think what keeps me up at night is right now we've gotten so focused in the cybersecurity technology industry on shinier solutions, right? Oh, we deal obviously a lot with DevOps. And so there's a bias to say, oh, you have a new DevOps tool. We have a tool to go secure that. But as technologists, we're actually trained that you start with people, then process, and then the tools. And I think with the rapid pace that cybercrime has grown, everybody just went straight for the tools, right? That's the only way I'm going to defend myself. And what keeps me up at night is that we're now trying to retrofit these people and processes. People, whether you're the average consumer or somebody working deep in the industry, have realized, cybersecurity is just part of what we do. That's good hygiene. That's good health. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning. And so now we're caught in between. We have all the tools, we've got the people on board, and now we've got to sort of figure out what is the process to actually deploy good security. As I was talking about before, that balances with not just a security risk, but an overall business risk. And that's right now, today, what I think most companies are struggling with, what we're working with our customers with. And, I think we've got to get back in some sense to fundamentals to say, you get things done because you follow a good process. And then we can say, then we have good cybersecurity.
I really like what you said, and I was taking notes. I wasn't just checking out. PPT, people, process, tools.
Yeah.
My guess, especially in the type of organizational work I do, is that understanding people, maybe even dysfunctional people, right, is really the key to your developing proper technology, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say understanding, the world that we live in and why we talk about bridging the gap between security and development is development and security have very different goals. They're potentially different personalities that go into them, right? If you think about security, your antivirus doesn't pop up and go, this is badish, right? It says bad, block. If you didn't like it, call somebody later, right? Very binary, very black and white. Versus development lives in this world of gray. Let's ship what's good enough and fix the rest later. You're not getting app updates once a week because suddenly they're releasing fancy new features that quickly, right? A lot of it is maybe not bug updates, but just incremental feature improvements. And, I think that's where you have to, when you're developing technology, whatever industry you're in, you really have to understand your persona and who you're working with. That's been part of the challenge in our industry, and something we've done differently was to say, okay, how do we deliver this solution for developers without impacting their workflow? And then the same thing for security without impacting their workflow. And in some sense, that means you actually need a translation between these two groups. But just more fundamentally, I think, technologists need to go. I was talking to another company yesterday, and they actually got the fat heads of their different personas for when they have product development roadmaps, and they will reference the persona and say, oh, why don't we ask Jeffrey, right? And that person is in the room so that they have them in front of it. And that's where, I think we forget who are the people that are using this and how are we solving their pain too often.
I mean, you're a natural segment for us all the time. I mean, this whole cybersecurity thing is just, explosive. And I would say that the majority of emails I get every day, I delete without any kind of response. And I push block a lot. It doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't change the flow every day. I even have to block my own name.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a consistent problem for me, but it's amazing. And I probably say to my wife more than anything else, don't open that, just delete it.
Right. We sent out an email internally, right? Don't think cybersecurity companies are immune. But we started noticing some very, very good spear phishing emails. And I said, this is now
great.
This is now getting bad enough that we need to let everybody know, because even I took 2 looks at some of them.
I mean, I think that the point for me is that if somebody is legitimately reaching out to me, it doesn't really make a difference if I don't know them. Right. They have to be someone I know regularly, or I'm just not going to respond. Right. And I love the style of, click my LinkedIn, click my schedule, make an appointment. Right. We've talked before. I'm like, we did. Yeah. I mean, they're very very sophisticated. They're
Oh,
only
yeah.
getting more sophisticated. And having, someone like you out there, I think is really critical to all of us. So if someone wants to know more about you and your business, how do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Visit our website, www.wabisoft, WABBISOFT.com, or connect with us on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. Just drop a note for why you're reaching out so I know that you're not spam. And happy to have this conversation in more depth with anybody. I think, the number one thing that we can all do in any of our industries, but especially security, is just raise awareness. So if you're curious about it, would love to chat.
Great. And remind everybody, we're going to try to get Brittany back. I'm going to try to twist her arm after this segment. And this is Radio Entrepreneurs.